G'day everyone, welcome to another episode of the Purple Coloured Glasses. I'll be going through my tips for round 8 and who I think is going to get up this week. So let's start with the first game of the round, doubleheader on Friday night. We've got Port Adelaide against the Western Bulldogs. Port have now won 2 in a row after their 0-5 start, and the Dogs have been going on a win-loss over their last couple of weeks. So it'll be interesting to see who gets up for this game. Looking at the ins and the outs, big one is Marcus Bontempelli is out for the Dogs. It's one of those ones where he was clearly playing at sort of 70 to 80%. He copped an ankle in the round 1 and a shoulder in round 3. And if you're watching the Dogs games, they put him up forward. He's not playing around the middle. He's not having as much impact as he was. So it says managed, but I think they're trying to look after him a bit, whether they give him a few more weeks off. And it can sometimes be a blessing in disguise. You bring in a lesser player. It won't be someone in the reserves who's going to come in and be as good as Bontempelli. But sometimes you just bring a guy in who's more fitted to the role and they're at close to 100% fitness, and you just get a bit more out of them as a system. With Sam Powell-Pepper's 100th game, Dersma's been admitted for Port Adelaide, which I think just means he's the medical sub because there's no one listed on the ins. I'll be tipping Port in this game, not with a great deal of confidence. They were fortunate to get over the line against St Kilda. Saints really should have won that game. But they look like they're just trying to fight it out for Kenny Hinkley. They got smashed in the prelim final last year against the Dogs. I don't think the Dogs are travelling that well. I think English is still out for them. Keith is still out for them. And Learius had a few games back now for Port Adelaide. So we saw in that game down in Ballarat, the Dogs just seemed to bomb it long. No real key targets up forward outside of Aaron Norton, who looks a bit banged up as well. So I could see Port Adelaide's defence getting on top. Their midfield's competitive, or can be competitive. And really, Bulldogs smashed Essendon last week, so it's a bit hard to take a lot out of that game. I think it'll be close. I'm tipping Port Adelaide by 11 points in this one. Then in the Friday night doubleheader, so Freo gets its first Friday night game in 5 years or 6 years or whatever it was. Gold Coast have had 2 Friday night games in this same time period. So there's this whole spiel about, you have to be a good competitive team and stuff to get the precious Friday night slot. But Gold Coast have had 2 in that time. And I think because of the way it's scheduled, it's actually the Foxtel game, not the free-to-air game. So even what's the normal allure of having that slot in terms of you got the free-to-air coverage and the lone time slot, so you get the publicity, right? There's no people sort of flicking through the games and at the pubs and stuff that the one game's on. But anyway, all that aside, we're playing North Melbourne, second last on the ladder. They haven't been great this year. Nick Larkey suspended. He's kicked most of their goals this year, so that's a big out for them. Mackay comes back, down back. And then for us, the big news is all the health and safety protocol out. So Akers probably been one of our best players this year. Griffin Logue, he's played an excellent shutdown role. I think we won't miss him as much against North Melbourne. They don't have those sort of dangerous forwards. Lloyd Meek comes, Sean Darcy comes in, so not a massive loss there. The second ruck goes out. Michael Frederick, I think he will be a bit of a loss, lose a bit of pace. Rory Lobb, so Darcy will probably have to ruck most of the game. I think Josh Tracy will give him a bit of a chop out, but he's nowhere at Rory Lobb's level. And Travis Collier, who's been a bit solid. I'm not absolutely sold on him in terms of him being in our team going forward, but he has played well this year. Jai Amos gets a debut. I'm pretty sure they'll rename him to Nev. And that's the joke I've sort of seen around at the moment. I'm not sure if the boys at the club are calling him Nev yet. But you can work out the joke if they changed his name from Jai to Nev. And, Chapman comes back. Young comes back. Darcy's back. Talked about that. Amos gets a debut. And Liam Henry's also been named in the team. A bit surprised about that. I thought Sam Sturt would come in. He's quite fast as well. But they've gone with Henry to replace Frederick. The only reason I can think for that is they just want to get more work into Sam Sturt. They think maybe his body's not up to it. He has been injury prone in the past. That's the only reason I can think of for that. I think long term they see Henry is more of a winger, and I was looking at the lineups and he's like in the forward pocket, and they've got Brendan Walker on a wing. Um, so it could be a bit of the way the team's been named and things like that, and blokes aren't actually going to line up where they've been listed. But yeah, it is a bit of a curious one. Neil Erasmus probably a bit stiff as well, but it could just be he's coming off the not the COVID protocols, the concussion protocols. He only had 60% game time in his last AFL game. He hasn't played at Peel. He's a first-year player. They haven't got that fitness or body of work into him to just be able to bring him back into the senior side. He's an exciting player. Will definitely be in the team for many years to come. He's not someone like Brayshaw or Fife or Mundy. These guys, they've played football for ages. They've got the pre-seasons behind them. They can have a week or two off and come straight back in the side. I don't think our first-year players can really do that as well. So I think that was just a smart decision by the coaching panel or match committee to just look after him a bit. They were pretty reluctant to select Amos going back a few weeks. They really wanted him to put in a body of work, build up his body, and I think he still needs to do that, and Longmuir even admitted that in the presser he gave. He's probably at, I think, 80% was the last week. And then for this week when he's named, he's like, he still needs to bulk up a bit. And I'm sure you'll see on the TV or at the ground, he's still a bit skinny, like in the arms and things like that, and in the body compared to those like big key foot. Like if you put him next to Tom Hawkins, he'd look tiny. But he seems to be one more of the sort of leading type. These guys can have a bit of an impact earlier. He's not a wrestler. He likes leading out into space, and he's a beautiful set shot. In Colts, he kicked 51-15, I think it was. And so far in the waffle, he's leading the goal kicking with 9 goals 3. So he's pretty accurate. Hopefully he doesn't have any sort of Freo curse injected into him and he blazes his first 3 shots out on the full or something. But it'd be great to see him up close, attending to go to the game on the weekend. Or tomorrow, I should say. So it'll be good to see, hopefully, our forward of the future, our key forward of the future, playing his first game. I'll be cheering for Nev. And I think Freo get up in this one quite easily. There's people saying, there's a chance now with all the changes. There's no excuses for Freo. Like, the back line is pretty much our first choice back line. The only person who you could argue who should be in there is Griffin Logue. But this is the chosen back line we went in quite a few games this year. And midfield is pretty much untouched outside of Akers on the wing. And our forward line, we've got a couple of outs. Taberner, Lobb, Frederick, Collier, these guys. But we've still got Walters, Schultz, and Switkowski. And these guys have been playing very well this year. All we need from Tracy and Amos is just provide a target, bring the ball to ground. We only need to kick 70 points to win this game. We're one of the best defences. We're playing one of the weakest teams in the league. The leading goal kickers out. Yeah, it would be great to blow them out of the water and win by 50-plus points. But even with our outs and all things sort of going on, we only need to kick 70 points. We've got a team to do that. I think we'll kick more than that. But I don't really see where this talk of a possible upset can come from. They're not that great. And there's no excuses if we drop this game at home to North. Then we go into the Saturday game. So we've got the Tigers up against Richmond. Quite an interesting game, this one. All the talks about Dusty coming back into the team, and they've just sort of snuck in there that Trent Cotchin's also come back. Excuse me. So a lot of media press around that about Dusty coming back. I will be tipping the Tigers in this game. Collingwood have been good this year, and they've got a definite chance of upsetting them. Richmond haven't been fantastic either. But I think looking at the ins, and Collingwood sounds like there's a bit of COVID or sickness going around. They got up last week against Gold Coast with a bout of gastro, I think, going through the club. They've had a couple of good wins in a row, and I think they're going to be a bit similar to, say, Hawthorn and a couple in Adelaide, it looks at the moment, where these young teams, they'll get some good results, but they'll hit a bit of a flat patch. And I think this is just going to be one of those games where they start hitting a little bit of a flat patch. You can't really take much out of last week's game for the Tigers against West Coast. They're playing when you win by 100 points, you can't really take much out of that. Their percentage certainly looks nice now, but I'll be tipping them to get over the Pies. Then we've got, it's a double header this game, so this one's in at the SCG. We've got Sydney against Gold Coast. Gold Coast, danger signs for them. It looks like they're hitting their usual 2 month. Yep, we've had enough for the year. We've given all our effort. We've won 3 games or 2 games. We're done for the year, and so things could get ugly down at Sydney. They're coming off a loss against Brisbane, quite an honourable loss. They certainly had a crack at them. McDonald and Paddy McCartan come back. That makes them stronger, I reckon, all around the ground in terms of up forward and down back. And for the Suns, this is a game they just need to win. Give themselves a chance. You keep the door open on your season, but it's just a lot of the basics they're just not doing right. They just miss lots of tackles. They don't play the entire game, so I can't tip them. I'm going to have to go to the Swans in this one. The next game is the Giants down at Manuka Oval in Canberra up against Geelong. And I've ummed and ahed quite a bit on this. So for the Cats, they've had Stevens, Evans, Dangerfield and Narkle come in. Selwood's out injured, Dowhouse is Melly sub, Holmes injured, Dempsey omitted and Higgins injured. On paper that's good changes for them. No real changes for the Giants as De Boer goes back to the Medi sub. I went with the Cats. I changed to the Giants. I might change back to the Cats, but I'm going to stick with the Giants. And this is really dependent on them. Last week they touched up Adelaide. There was a lot of pressure on Leon Cameron. This week, do they back it up, or do they just go, we relieve the pressure for a couple of weeks, and they'll come out in 3 weeks and blow a team away again? I think it was a bit similar last year. They lost a couple of games, and then it started to turn, and they did put a bit of a run on. They've got some pace. They can match them in the midfield. They've got some scoring potential up forward. Sam Taylor and Keefe are quite decent key defenders. You've got Haynes down there as well. So I think they can look after Cameron and Hawkins. Geelong don't lose too many in a row, but they have looked a bit vulnerable to some of the teams with pace. They've got a bit of pace, the Giants, like Whitfield and Cornelia and these types of guys. So that's why I'll be going with the Giants. I'm not super convinced, as you can probably tell, but we're going with them for this one. Then we've got the Bombers up against Hawthorn. So much pressure on the Bombers this week. If you've been watching the channel, you know I don't rate them. They lose Jake Stringer this week. He's like their X-Factor player. Someone who breaks lines, someone who can kick goals, someone who can inspire them. So with him out, you don't really see much coming from Essendon this week. I think Shields was dropped last week. Dylan Shield was dropped last week, and he hasn't been brought back in. I just don't see how they win this game against Hawthorn. They look incredibly well coached. I think it's chalk and cheese. You look at Ben Rutten, and it's hard to understand what the system is and what the players are meant to be doing versus Sam Mitchell in his first year as the senior coach. And clearly the players have an understanding of what the plan is and they don't execute it properly all the time, and there's some fade outs because they're a younger team and they're learning the system. But you can see there's a way they're trying to play and they respond to some of the tactical things that Sam Mitchell does in a game. They gave Melbourne a bit of a shake. You got to acknowledge Melbourne also had 5 out due to COVID. Wingard's 200th game. Yeah, and this is a big rivalry game for these two clubs. I think Hawthorn will see a great opportunity here. Essendon are on their knees. They're copping it from everyone. What better thing you can do to your rival is to just make it even worse. Just stick the knife in even further. And I'm pretty sure that's what Hawthorn are going to do in this game. So I'm going to be tipping the Hawks. Then Sunday, quite an interesting game this one. Demons up against Saints. Not many people are giving St Kilda a chance in this game. Melbourne get quite a few of their players back from all the medical protocols. Tom McDonald's playing his 200th game. I think Melbourne will win, but I don't think it'll be by a lot. It's been a lot of their games this year, I think, have just been holding teams at bay. I've seen a couple of people sort of saying online this week that there's been scrutiny on Brisbane and Freo. Who have they beaten? because they haven't played anyone. And then, Brisbane knocked off Sydney and Freo knocked off Geelong. Who has Melbourne played? And I think it's a bit silly to make that argument. Like, Melbourne won the flag last year. Like, they are the team to beat, and they haven't lost a game yet. So it's a bit of a silly argument. They beat the Dogs in round one, who most people thought would be top 8, but they aren't. So I think that argument's a bit flawed against Melbourne, but they are playing a top team so far in St Kilda this week. And I don't really see a way the Saints win. They'd really have to get on top in the midfield. Like, we're talking like holding Petrarca and Oliver down. They have a bad day sort of thing. Like, I think Melbourne will just keep ticking along. They're not going to blow Saints out of the water by 40 points or anything. They'll just play at that level that's good enough to win by a couple of goals. And if they're challenged and the Saints are leading throughout the game, that wouldn't surprise me. Melbourne will just kick it up a gear, do enough, get sort of 40 points ahead, and then let the Saints kick a couple of junk time goals to make the margin a bit respectful. So that's how I see that one going. And then Carlton against Adelaide. So normally this would be a danger game for Carlton. And it's actually very similar to the game against Port Adelaide quite a few weeks ago where, Port are getting smashed. Adelaide got smashed in their last game. And no one really gave them a chance. And they were 50 points up and almost choked. But I don't think that'll happen this week. A few changes for... I was going to say quite a few changes for Adelaide at the moment. But it's a Sunday game, so it's an extended squad. But Brodie Smith's out injured. That's a big loss. Matt Crouch has been omitted. And McHenry... McHenry's been quite good for them up forward. Very energetic, giving them a bit. So yeah, and currently in his a key name I'm seeing here is Jesse Motlop out of Freo's NGA that Carlton poached from us. So if he does get a game, hope he plays well, but it'll also sting a bit because we did a lot of the development on him. Yes, I'll be tipping Carlton by 4 or 5 goals. They can be competitive and they've responded to some losses this year, Adelaide, so I can see them making a bit of an arm wrestle for a quarter or two and then Carlton just running over the top of them. So that's my tips for the week. Let me know what you think of my tips. Who are you tipping? I know there's some people that just can't stand Richmond at the moment. They don't think they're no good, so I wouldn't be surprised to see a few Collingwood tips come in. Be interested to know what you think about the Giants-Geelong game. I was very torn on that one. And yeah, have a great evening. I'll see you all next time.